Hi there! Welcome to Cook Local, Eat Local, the podcast where you can find inspiration, tips, and recipes for enjoying more local food and drink. I am David Crowley, your host. In today's episode, we'll be chatting with Ginain Grayes about what to do with the produce in the first CSA pickup of the season. Ginain is a marketing and communications pro by day while living out her true passion as the host of Cook the Garden podcast. As a food and garden creator, she empowers everyday people to cultivate, harvest, and prepare garden-to-plate meals for their families, inspiring them to lead more sustainable lives. First, let's check out what we got in this week's CSA Pickup. I'm excited to see what we have in the first CSA Share Pickup of the season here in mid-June. Let's go. All right, scallions. Could be some scallion dip in our future. Lettuce, looks like red leaf lettuce. And whoa, more lettuce. I guess lettuce grows early here in these parts. Romaine lettuce, right? I believe so. Oh yeah, one of the favorite early season vegetables for me is asparagus. All right, and next up we have, what is that? It's green, spinach. Big bag of spinach. And then, I think one of the best looking vegetables, we have radishes. And the tops too. Ooh, pesto. Radish top pesto is a thing. And we have, I believe these are called spring onions. It's kind of small, young onions. I wonder, you can probably do this something with the tops. We'll have to check that out. Ooh, that bag is empty, but we have a bonus. We have fresh local strawberries. And that is what we have. And next, we'll be chatting with Ginain to see what ideas we can come up with for these veggies. Stay tuned. Well, hello, Ginain. It is great to have you on Cook Local, Eat Local.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. We are both fellow podcasters into local food, but we'll try. I think we covered some of our podcast nerdiness before hitting record. That's not the focus of this show. But what I do want to hear about is how you got interested. I know your podcast is called Cook the Garden and focuses on your gardening and the good stuff you make from it. So I'm kind of curious, like, which came first, your interest in gardening or cooking, and how that all evolved, if it's, something new or a long-term passion. So tell us how that
Sure.
evolved.
So let me go back a little bit. So a lot of people think that, I grew up loving to cook and, being in the kitchen a lot and in the garden a lot. And quite honestly, that has not been the case. In fact, I'm actually the youngest out of my four siblings. My family comes from, Suriname, which is considered, the Caribbean, South America. And my parents and my older siblings did most of the cooking. And I was honestly, like, cooking was so not on my radar. Um, it wasn't on my radar until I was very well into my adulthood and I got married, started having kids, and I realized, like, okay, I think it's time for me to at least figure out how to put together a meal or two.
Yeah.
So I just got creative in the kitchen and started realizing that I really, really love to cook. And, throughout the years, growing has always been an interest of mine. I kind of nerd out on it, and I didn't realize until when I went back years ago, when I went back to my home country in Suriname, I visited my grandparents at the time, and they live on a farm. They had a farm, with the whole shebang, chickens, animals. They grew their own food,
Nice.
and I didn't realize how much that stuck with me.
Hmm.
And it's not until years later, I started thinking about that trip. And that was, like, honestly, the most memorable part of the trip. I remember, being my youngest daughter's age, about 10 or 11 years old, going back. And that's the one thing that I remember is going out on the farm.
Hmm.
And I saw how they were growing their own food and just being self sufficient. And that stuck with me. And so once, I got into my own house, my husband has also been interested in as well. We started growing our own food. And from there, it blossomed. When we got into our new home, um, having a good sized piece of land was really important to me because I had this vision of just growing my own food, and not only for my own family, but just also to share with family and friends and my neighbors. And so that's what I've been doing.
Nice. Well, you're a good neighbor for sure then, or a good friend if you're sharing good fresh food. That's awesome. I love that story. It's interesting. I feel like I've talked to others on the show that have similar, like a seed planted early on, but you maybe didn't realize it was even a strong interest that was
Absolutely.
good, but that early experience and then circling back to it. That's cool. Well, one of my skills is definitely not growing things. My wife and I seems like we joke like who will kill a plant the fastest.
Oh gosh.
So I rely on getting fresh local food when it's seasonal to subscribe to a CSA, as I think you know. And this was actually our much different growing season in New England than where you are in Florida. And so this was actually the first week that the local farms offered us up some crops. And I know you're going to help me think about what to do with them. And one reason that some listeners will be listening to this just audio, but you will get to see a couple of the things we're talking about because there is a video available on Cooking Chat's YouTube channel. The first one, it's not a mystery. I gave you a preview. We got some nice radishes. I
Yes.
think they're basic radishes, and they are pretty. I noticed having done CSAs for a while, we get a lot of radishes, and I like them, but they're often more than I know what to do with. So I would love to hear, your ideas, for, both any recipes, ways you prepare them, as well as any tips just for taking care of them. You can see I stuck them in a bowl with water. That was a good one I read about. I don't know what you think about that one.
Yeah. No, it's good. That actually prolongs their life. So no, that's great. And I love radishes. Radishes are actually probably one of the easiest vegetables to grow. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, they're really super easy. And what I love about radishes is that you can basically utilize the entire plant, the entire
Hmm.
vegetable, including the radish leaves.
Yep.
Not sure if you've ever had radish leaves, but they're actually really delicious. Um, and they're really great for, like, I honestly, like, if I'm wanting to make a pesto
Hmm.
and I have fresh radishes, I'll use their leaves and I'll put in the pesto just to kind of like beef it up if I don't have enough, like, uh, basil.
Oh,
I'll,
okay. Mixing it in
add,
like that.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah, add that. You can add carrot tops to it.
Hmm.
But recently I made a really, really delicious strawberry radish salsa.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's absolutely
Yeah,
delicious.
that is definitely
So I know
different.
the strawberries are in season in many other areas. In Florida, our strawberry season is actually from like December to about like April,
Yeah,
maybe early
right.
May.
Right.
And so, like, little fun fact, I know we're talking about radishes, but
That's
just a
okay.
little fun fact about strawberries here, where I'm located in Florida, I'm about 20 minutes to half an hour away from a small town called Plant City, which
Hmm.
is considered the winter strawberry capital of the world.
Hmm.
So strawberries are a big deal around here.
Nice.
So with the radish and strawberry salsa, it's basically you're just chopping up the fresh radishes and dicing them up and dicing up your strawberries and making a delicious salsa. You can add, some red onion in there. You can add your cilantro,
Mhm.
some lime juice, some honey, and just make a delicious dressing with it. And it's so refreshing. It's so delicious. I'll include the link. I'll send you the link to that recipe, but
Perfect. Yeah, that
it's
sounds
so
good.
fun because it's so refreshing, and this is a perfect time of year to enjoy that, whether you want to put it on top of like grilled fish or grilled
Hmm.
chicken. Um, I always like have it with some tortilla chips or
Nice.
something. So it's really nice because you can make a really large batch and
Yep.
just kind of eat off of it for the whole week.
Oh, that sounds excellent. Yeah, I always think I do need to use, I'm kind of boring with fruits. I tend to like, so I did get some strawberries too, which we'll segue to in a minute, but I tend to just like put it on my cereal or something like that. But I do the freshness you get from adding it to something like a salsa or a salad even is pretty definitely worth doing.
Absolutely. And they're really great too. Radishes are really great pickled.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so if and it's so easy, just throw it in there with your vinegar, some sugar. You can add your pickling spices in there and in a mason jar and just eat off of that. You can I love pickled anything. Like I just love pickled foods.
Yeah.
So it's a really great compliment to I always like refer I love like grilled fish. We have fish like multiple times in a week.
Yeah. Nice and
So
fun.
it's a
Oh, yeah.
really it's really great. It has kind of like radishes have that little kind of little spiciness to it as
Yep.
well.
Right. Right.
Um, so it's a really great companion to like a grilled meat.
Mhm.
So yeah, you can get really creative with radishes. They're also great um, roasted.
I have done that. That is a nice touch. And I did one time make a pesto with all radish tops, and then I put the actually roasted the bottoms and put them like instead of like
Yeah.
putting a meat or in it just for a little crunch with the pasta. That's good.
Yeah, it's you can get really, fun with the flavors too. You could do like a roasted radish with roasted garlic,
Ooh, yes.
dill.
Mm.
You can get, yeah, really creative with the flavors. I also love like putting some Parmesan over it. That kind of gives it another little
Oh yeah.
depth of flavor. And yeah, so it's I enjoy it. I love playing around with it. And if you've got a large quantity of them, they also freeze really well
Oh
too.
really? I wouldn't
Yeah,
think
that's
I
good to
thought to do
know.
that. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of hit or miss something. I mean, I guess a lot of things freeze pretty well. So you just would clean
Yeah,
them,
yeah,
freeze
I
them.
would clean them. I'd prep them, cut them up first, however I want. Like if I'm doing a big batch of, if I know I want to do a big batch of the salsa,
Hmm.
I'll just dice it up right away,
Oh yeah,
and
makes sense.
stick them in the freezer. That'll kind of like prolong their life, and yeah, so it's a really versatile, vegetable. I enjoy it in so many various ways. And I love to grow it because they're easy. They're easy to
Oh, they
grow.
are. Okay. So for
Yeah.
somebody that's maybe like me and killed a lot of plants, but wants to get into something that might be it's a
Oh,
good one for the
yeah.
short
You
list.
just kind of let them go. You let them go
Mhm.
do their
Oh,
thing.
okay.
A lot of plants are like that, but I have faith in you, David. I know there's something out there you can grow. We'll
Right.
work on that.
All right. Maybe I'll have to think about that. All right. So I did say I had some strawberries. Yeah, I have had those Florida strawberries in that season while visiting once or twice. You're my nice
Look at
strawberry. It smells so
those.
good. And yeah, this is like just the start of strawberry season here. Like everything, it kind of moves from south to north, and this is
Right.
the next few weeks will be like the best time for local strawberries. So you already told me about that delicious salsa I'm definitely making because I think I have everything
Yeah.
I need right
I
here.
was just gonna say you have everything. You've got the radishes, you've got the strawberries, perfect combination right there. But yeah, so I always think about, it's so hot right now, it's warm, and so like a
Mhm.
fun treat that I love to make with my fresh strawberries. Like we're still getting them, although it's we're out of the strawberry season here. I still get them, from they're coming from other areas of the
Yep.
country, obviously. But I love to make, I'm really into like the cool and uh, cold treats, because it's so
Oh
hot
yeah.
down here. So I
Yeah.
do a strawberry sorbet,
Ooh, sounds
which
good.
is so delicious and
Mm,
so insanely easy to make.
mm.
Um, and honestly, it's just a really simple, it's almost like too simple. Like it's like, okay, something can't be this delicious and it's that easy to make, but it really is. you just blend your strawberries. And the nice thing about it, you can add other fruits to it. You can add
Hmm.
bananas, you can
Yeah.
add mangoes. Like mangoes are in season here right
Oh,
now.
nice.
So a really delicious mango strawberry sorbet would be really great.
Mhm.
But I just blended. If you have a food processor, you can use a food processor.
Mhm.
But just blend it down. I like to freeze them first. So it does kind of get that frozen effect to it.
Oh, okay. Before.
And
Okay.
yeah, before I blend them. And then, you can add a sweetener if you need to. Typically I'll maybe put a little bit of honey or agave, and a hint of lime is really
Mhm.
good. It kind of gives it a kind of a little bit of just a little zest, that
Yeah.
lime
Yeah.
zest.
Definitely.
And you just take a freezer friendly container. I like to use loaf pans, and I just pour it in there
Hmm.
and stick it in the freezer. And that's it. And
Wow.
now you've got homemade sorbet. You
That sounds
can
good.
you can even I've got, well, my kids are a little older now. My youngest is 10 years old or 11. But we still like to make our own like homemade frozen treats.
Yeah.
And so if you've got those little pouches, you can make little ices with those.
Oh, nice.
You can just scoop it out and just have it in a bowl. Maybe add a little bit of mint, fresh mint in
Yeah.
there, and yeah, so it's a
Nice.
really fun treat. It's great for summer, and you can get really creative in using other um, fruits in there. The mango's delicious, pineapple.
Yeah, the mango, it strikes out because what I'm thinking about is I have my son goes in and out of doing smoothies, and so like sometimes then he's into it, so I buy the big bag of frozen fruit, and
Frozen.
that just kind of sits. I've had this big bag of mangoes for a while and taking up a lot of space. I'm thinking, okay, maybe we combine that with some of these fresh strawberries. Um,
Oh, yeah. Oh, that would be delicious. That would be phenomenal. And you mentioned how your son likes the smoothies. I love that too. I have a smoothie like daily. I
yeah.
start my day with a smoothie. So it's a really great way. Like even if I have leftover or like one-offs from the garden,
Hmm.
and it's maybe not enough to make like a full meal, I'll stick them in smoothies.
Oh yeah.
So I just make like little smoothie packs ahead of time. And strawberries are great for that.
Mhm.
You can even make like a strawberry punch,
Oh yeah.
strawberry lemonades. Gosh, there's so much you can do.
Wow, that sounds great. Yeah, because I do find, and I assume to do most of that, you want to do it pretty soon after they're picked. Like it's like you want to anticipate that as opposed, I think what happens here is sometimes looks like, oh yeah, we're into eating the strawberries, but then you realize, half, 3 or 4 days have gone by and they're looking a little tired. That's probably not the time to get into that kind of project.
Well, it's funny because I've been known to do that sometimes where, I'll have every intention on eating it fresh, and a couple
Mhm.
days have gone by and they're starting to look pretty, like a little tired.
Yeah,
The best thing to do is freeze it
yeah,
because that will prevent you from having to toss them, right?
a good point. Yeah,
Yeah. So even if, it's been a few days and you see like, oh, they look like they're on the verge of going bad, stick them in the freezer.
yeah, good call. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you must. And that actually something else I wanted to ask you about is you kind of have already peppered in some good tips about like how to make sure, when you have an abundance of things, you use it well. You've covered a lot, the freezing. Any other strategies you use? I'm sure you have. What's the up here?
Yeah.
It's zucchini that people have gardens. Oh, like if
Yeah.
we've got way too much of. Maybe that's universal. I don't know, but maybe it's something different down your way.
Well, I always we try to be a no waste household.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard, but it's definitely a mindset thing. And
Mhm.
when you've, really, decided that you're going to do your best and be mindful of, how much you waste, you really start thinking about it in terms of that. So everything you do, whether I'm like shopping, grocery shopping, or I'm deciding what I'm going to grow that season, I always have in mind that um, there's no way there's not going to be any waste.
Right.
So
Good.
freezing, I freeze a lot. I suggest looking into, I've been, getting into canning. I
Mhm.
haven't typically done that in the past, but I'm starting to grow more and more items. I've added more raised beds in my yard.
Mhm.
So I've been getting into canning, fermenting, and there's so many resources out there, literally just, look on YouTube. It's just
Yeah.
a wealth of just knowledge. But I suggest doing that, and sharing is caring.
Right.
So, like I grow a lot of things that, my family and I just can't possibly eat all of it.
Right.
And it just brings me joy sharing it. So if I know I've got a neighbor who loves all this zucchini, like I'll just
Mm.
share the zucchini with them, family, friends, whoever. And I think that's part of the joy that I have in gardening is that piece of it as
Yeah.
well, is the
Wonderful.
sharing part of it and encouraging people and, just supporting my community in any way possible. So that does bring me a lot of joy. So yeah, I do a lot of freezing, getting into canning. I share a lot of my crops.
Mhm.
And as I mentioned, we're a no waste household here. So we compost.
Yep.
So whatever scraps that we have left over, they're going directly back into the garden. And so it's
Perfect.
just a constant, uh, the garden gives and then we give
Mhm.
back. And it just,
Yeah.
that's kind of how it is. And it's really easy to start that. At first, composting was a little um, intimidating for me,
Mhm. Yeah.
uh, but you can really, really just, it's very simple. Um, I know for some folks, they direct compost. So if you got a garden in your backyard, and I've done this too, you can literally take your scraps from that day and just directly put it into the soil. You're not even having to do that
Oh,
compost pile. Yeah.
oh, not that whole. Oh, that's interesting. For
Yeah.
those of for those of us that don't have a garden, that you another there. This is I don't know. This might seem a little lazy, but at least it's getting composted. There's a certain like a pickup service in our area called Black Earth Compost, and that's what we do. So we compost our stuff, and they do the composting part for you, and then you can either, if you don't have a garden like us, it gets donated to like some kind of local farm or nonprofit that does, food
Yes.
security type stuff, or if you're a gardener, they'll send it back to you. So
Absolutely. I'm so glad you mentioned that. That's a really great option. And no, that's not lazy. You are doing your part in sustainability.
right,
And I think as long as we all do our parts, that's all that matters, right?
right.
And just kind of doing what you have the capacity to do. So no, that's not lazy at all, David.
Okay.
I
Okay.
applaud you for that.
We do get reports from it that are pretty cool. It shows you like how many tons of, I don't know if it's tons. Yeah, I think I might be up to a ton. We've been doing it for a few
Wow.
years. They've been redirected from the landfill and stuff like that. So it's cool.
That's great.
Um, I have one more vegetable to talk about. I actually didn't. I think most people know what spinach looks like. Got a big old bag of spinach, not big, grown-up spinach, or maybe it's like adolescent spinach. I don't know if that's it's not those huge leaves you get sometimes, but definitely
Yeah.
somewhere in between. So it looks good and fresh. And that's another one that's always early in the season, a green. I don't know. So do you have tricks for getting people to eat their spinach?
So I love sauteed spinach.
Hmm.
I have a picky eater in the house, and she's not very, that's not her favorite thing.
Yeah.
She prefers her spinach in salads. So
Hmm.
we'll do that as well. But I love a really delicious garlic sauteed spinach. And I have that with literally anything.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of times I'll just make a large batch, and it's so easy to like meal prep that.
Yeah.
Um, Spinach leaves are also really, really great for freezing.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah, you can freeze spinach leaves and without having to blanch them, which is kind of like a pre-cooking it ahead of time. Like you can just literally put them in. If you're getting the if you're getting the spinach fresh out of your garden, or if you're getting it fresh out of your CSA, you would just rinse it off. I kind of lay them out to dry completely,
Yeah.
and then just put them in the freezer in a Ziploc bag, in a freezer friendly Ziploc bag. Make sure you get all of the air out, as much
Oh, yeah.
air out as
Right.
possible, and just stick them in a freezer. And when you're ready to use them, they're really great in stews.
Mm-hmm.
They're great in soups. Oh goodness, you can do so much with the spinach. So I love soups. We eat a lot of soups around here.
Yeah.
So they're always just so super easy to do that. And then I mentioned earlier, with the radish, if you have like the radish greens, for
Mm-hmm.
instance,
Right.
you can actually have the radish greens and mix that with the spinach and
Mhm.
actually make a pesto out of that as
With
well.
spinach. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
it would
for
be
pesto.
really
Yeah.
delicious to make a
Hmm.
pesto. So same way you would do with like a basil, you can
Right.
actually, if you have basil, you can add basil, and just put that in your pine nuts. If you don't have the pine nuts, you can use walnuts,
Yeah.
almonds, your Parmesan in there, Romano, whatever cheese,
Yeah.
and put that all in your food processor or blender, and now you have a really delicious pesto that you've
Mhm.
used with all of your spinach and your radish leaves,
Mhm.
and whatever other greens that you have. And you can make really large batches and just put them in like ice cube trays. And now you've got pesto for months. You can
Yeah.
go into the
Yeah.
winter and just pull out your fresh pesto.
Hmm.
So I love utilizing it in that way as well.
Yeah. So do you have a pretty organized freezer or a way to keep track of what's in there?
I don't have an organized freezer, but I do have what I put in the freezer. I do have like a running inventory.
Okay.
Be-
I need to
yeah,
do
because
that.
sometimes it's hard to figure out what's in there, and you're trying to like figure out like get in the back. And so I try
Hmm.
to keep at least a list of what I have, because it's just so easy to forget what's back there. Sometimes it's hard to get all the way back there. I've got my regular freezer, but then I've got like a deep freezer in my garage,
Oh, nice.
and
Yeah.
then like another freezer.
Oh, wow. You definitely gotta keep a list.
Yeah, so I keep a list, just, and a lot of times that list helps me know that, okay, this is what you have and this is what we need to utilize. And it's a really
Right.
great way to avoid not having to like go back to the grocery store and spend, all this money on stuff that you essentially already have at home.
Right.
So that list is
Mm.
really, really helpful.
Yeah. I need to get in. I need to make a more concerted, consistent effort to do that because, yeah, just like, especially if you don't use it right away, there's certain things that are coming in and out of the freezer all the time, and they just get under bigger bags and stuff. So, yeah, that's a good, yeah,
Absolutely.
a good
I
point.
feel your struggle with that. And trust me, we go through our seasons here where it just gets out of control.
Yeah,
And it is what it is. You try your best, and we gotta give ourselves grace sometimes.
right.
It's
That's
not
true.
always gonna be like this organized, beautiful like I'm telling you right now, like my freezer is so not Instagram worthy.
Right, right.
But
You're
I
supposed to
don't
show the
mind
real
sharing
you, so
that.
maybe.
Yeah, but I don't mind sharing that, because I do think that social media has really just it's it's done a lot of great things. It helps, people, it inspires, but it also I think there's the other side of it where it
Hmm.
really does play with your mind, because sometimes you feel like, oh man, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be
Oh,
doing,
right. Yeah,
or
that's true.
the aesthetics, like I don't have this perfectly laid out freezer.
Yeah,
And that's okay,
right.
that it's perfectly okay. So sometimes I do share those moments of imperfection, because hey, we're all just trying to do our best, and real life is not perfect. So
Amen. That's right. One thing I was gonna say when you just going back to just to throw out another idea on the spinach, I almost never spinach is something I very rarely come to the stage of needing the freezer because what I do when it starts looking a little tired, I love the sauteed spinach too, and I find it's definitely times I wouldn't want to make a salad out of it quite yet because it's or at that point because it's looking kind of like a little tired. But you don't notice if you throw it in with some olive oil and garlic and maybe some other
Oh,
stuff too. Yeah.
exactly. You don't notice it. You know what I also do with some of my wilted spinach too? I'll put it in like a frittata.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And if for like a brunch or breakfast.
Hmm.
I know during the school year, we're on summer vacation now, but during the school year, I'll do these make ahead breakfast. Uh, I guess breakfast tacos for my kids with
Oh,
the
nice.
scrambled eggs and the spinach in there.
Oh,
And it's a really great way. Like my youngest will eat that
wow. Nice.
because I kind of like, you can't really sneak it in there because it's obvious,
Right.
but she likes the flavor because it's not just spinach. Like she's
Right.
having the scrambled eggs in there, and yeah, so those are really really great. But I utilize the wilted spinach for that too, and you
Yeah.
would never know.
Right. Right. So we've covered, you've already thrown out so many good ideas, but I did want to give you a chance if there are any ideas, tips for eating, leaning into eating more local food that we haven't covered that you want to throw out there or reinforce something that you've already said.
Yeah, eating local for me is really important. And just like, with you, David, I love what you're doing and just kind of, helping people throughout the process. I think just bringing, awareness to folks. And it forces people to really start thinking about it. I think, for so long, eating local wasn't really
Hmm.
very much on my radar until I realized like what an impact it really does have. So for me, I've done CSAs in the past. I think it is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And it's really great too. Like when I'm in my in between planting seasons,
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
if I don't really have much going on in my garden, it's a really great way to supplement what I'm doing, growing and doing in my garden. So CSA is a really great thing. If you are near a farmer's market,
Hmm.
I definitely would recommend checking that out. I've been known to shop at farmers markets, connecting with local farmers, if you have access to that. And I do know, I say all of this knowing that I know for a lot of people, access is a big barrier.
Right.
Not everyone has access to, farmers and farmers markets or fresh fruits and vegetables.
Right.
So I really take all of that into consideration. But if you don't have access in your local grocery store, definitely like talk to your local grocery store, talk to the produce managers, ask them, are there any local produce here? Or do you support local farmers?
Hmm.
How is that process? And I just had a recent interview or conversation with one of my past guests in my podcast where she mentioned how it's so hard for local producers, local farmers to get their products on the shelves in
Hmm.
our grocery stores.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Right.
bureaucracy that goes into it, lots of politics.
Right.
So when you do see that local farmer, support
Yeah.
them. So support it, use your dollars, use your voice, you know, and that's a really great way to let them know, like, hey, this really is like on top of mind for a lot of folks. And there's power in numbers.
Yeah.
So talk to your neighbors, talk to your family, um, and all of that good stuff. But at the end of the day, for me, I think the most important thing is for people to recognize and have access to fresh produce. It's
Yeah.
even better if it's local.
Hmm.
But first and foremost, we want people to eat healthier and
Right.
be more mindful of the food that they're putting in their body. So I said a lot there, but I'm really passionate about it.
No, I hear you. Because I mean, I don't know if you've looked at the numbers as to how, U.S. compares with, with the wealthiest country in the world. We should have better health outcomes than we do, but I mean, it's not exclusively. I mean, a lot of issues with health inequities and this and that, but definitely our eating habits are definitely got to be a big part of that story, because I don't think our culture is as good as building the food, the meals around the fresh produce like some other cultures
Absolutely.
do.
Yeah, no, absolutely 100%. So I'm really, really passionate about that. And, it's not as scary as folks think,
Right,
and at the end of the day, when we talk about supporting local as well, um, not only is it better for our health to eat locally sourced produce, but it also supports the local economy.
right.
It supports our local, farmers and producers and folks who are really, just in the front lines. So it's really great all the way around. Um, so yeah,
Right,
sorry.
definitely. No, it's good. So you have both a podcast and a website. Can you give us the details as we wrap, to where people can find out more of these ideas and resources from you?
Of course. So my podcast is called Cook the Garden Podcast. It's a weekly podcast. It's seasonal. So right now we're on a break, but I'll be back in August. And what I do on Cook the Garden Podcast is I share garden to plate recipes. A lot of it is inspired from my own garden and what I'm growing.
Hmm.
But we also insert just dynamic conversations. And I bring on guests to talk about things just like this, where, we talk about sustainability,
Hmm.
we talk about food justice, um, accessibility, all of that good stuff.
Nice.
So it's been really fun, and looking forward to the next season starting in August. So that's
Oh,
Cook the Garden Podcast. And then I have my food blog, which is called Cook, Pray, Slay. So you can find me on cookprayslay.com. And that's where I share more overall recipes. I do have more of a focus on garden recipes, but there
mhm.
are some other, like fun, non-traditional, well, not, I shouldn't say non-traditional, but maybe not as healthy recipes on
Okay, not
there.
100%. Yeah, my cooking chat is
Yeah.
my blog. It's similar. It's healthy-ish is sort of what I say, but yeah, not a,
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So the cook price say is a little bit more broad,
yeah.
whereas the work I'm doing on Cook the Garden is really a lot more niche down, and definitely a passion of mine as well. So yeah, thank you for letting me plug that.
Yeah, well, definitely. It's a great resource, and you have abundance of ideas and energy for this topic. So I appreciate you. This is kind of our kickoff episode of our second year of doing this focus on what to do with what's in our CSA. So it's been a great conversation. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun, David.
Cool. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Cook Local, Eat Local. To get the show notes with links for recipes and resources we covered today, go to cooklocaleatlocal.com to get the podcast landing page. And please be sure to subscribe to Cook Local, Eat Local wherever you get your podcasts. Make it a great day with some tasty local food on your plate.